Barbados. We're back with you. Thank you for staying with us for news, traffic, sports. We'll have another traffic report for you, certainly before the 8 o'clock hour. We're continuing our discussion on traffic. We have members of the Royal Barbados Police Force with us. We have Station Sergeant Rodney Innes with us, and we also have Public Relations Officer David Welch. Inspector David Welch, apologies, with us. So we're continuing this discussion. I imagine that one of the things that goes right along with traffic concerns would be parking. Sometimes people do parking wherever they feel they need to at the time. Let's talk about that. Where do we start?
Okay, well, in the city of Bridgetown, there are several places mandated or provided for parking. And there are areas of what we call on-street parking as well, legally, legitimately. However, our concern is the number or the volume of vehicular traffic parked in illegal parking areas. Annually, from our department, we process in excess of 9,000 penalty tickets just for illegal parking alone.
Okay, Station, we have someone who's holding on their style, so we can get back to the parking. We don't want to get them late. So, Cleveland, good morning. Good morning, Cleveland.
Perhaps Cleveland couldn't hold any longer.
Good morning, Cleveland.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Cleve.
What's your question, please?
Okay, so Bridgetown and Cleveland not connecting right now, so may continue.
Right. And as I said, we've issued annually around 9,000 penalty tickets for illegal parking. Persons, as you said earlier, just seem to come to town. They have to do the business, and they put their vehicles down wherever is comfortable or convenient for them at the time. The rule of thumb, as I sell to persons and Road Traffic Act sells to persons, drivers, every place in town is no parking except which says you can park.
Okay.
So in other words, you should look for the P sign, which indicates that you can park legally, rather than taking the chance and saying, well, hey, it looks safe. I mean, there's an onus on the Ministry of Transport and Work to make sure that the marks and the markation is correct, to educate the public as to where and where they cannot. However, there are lots of repeat offenders as well. And I think one of the aspects we need to do is a follow-up plan, where those persons will be prosecuted for parking illegally. They're repeat offenders. Some persons get about 10, 15 tickets.
That's one of the issues that is always of concern, Station Sergeant, is that people seem to, well, certain people, but we won't single out anybody this morning, they would pile up inordinate amounts of tickets, and it's cool, and they continue to drive, they continue to break the law, and it's like, how does that make the police force feel, though? I mean, if I were in that position, I'd probably want to throw my hands up in the air and say, you know what, let them just do what they want. But how the enforcement, well, not so much the enforcement, but the punishment, are you all happy with how that is going?
Well, I would say our aspect, we're disciplined, and our aspect is in fact the enforcement. Obviously, you want to see the follow-up with the punishment or the penalty. We may not be happy with a lot of things, but I'm very glad to say that there has been an amendment, or recommended amendments to the Road Traffic Act, and we'd be more than pleased when the new act is enforced or passed. And in the act addresses challenges like those. What it means, though, currently what we have to do for those persons who have more than one ticket.
I have to interrupt you again because I want you to talk about that. But apparently Cleveland was having some technology problems. So he's back with us after sorting out his cell phone. Good morning again, Cleveland.
Good morning.
Okay.
I couldn't help that. Sorry, guys.
No problem. Go ahead.
Okay, but going right back to before we had the break, on the road, what's happening with the minibuses and stuff. And there's a peeve I have with that. I want to make a little suggestion. What about, instead of trying to get the insurance into it and all that, is there any way that the force can say, okay, see you doing some things on the road, why don't I just take your vehicle from you for 1 week? Let's see how the economy of your situation turns around. Just so we can get you back in line. Because there's so much nonsense happening out there that it's almost incredible. You're driving on the road, and instead of going fast, sometimes they go very, very slow and drag you and all kind of things, all manner of blocks I see come from them. Can you put some light on that for me? If that is possible, if the police can do that, if there has to be legislation for it, whatever.
Okay.
What are your thoughts?
That's correct. Although that may be your idea, we do law enforcement, and unfortunately the law doesn't provide for that. Certainly the lawmakers, the policy makers will have to put that on their statute books for us to be able to enforce it. But currently we have no authority to do such.
Sorry guys.
No, I know you're passionate. Go ahead, go ahead.
Is the police force consulted? First of all, you mentioned new legislation that is soon to be enacted. What sort of input do you know that the police force, and inspector, you can come in here, maybe whoever, was there an input from the police force?
Gladly, yes.
Oh,
yes, there was.
Okay.
From the stakeholders, yes. We had several meetings where we debated and we put forward, and it was welcome because obviously we would have some insight, being the eyes and the ears for the Ministry of Transport and Work and others. We had our input, and a lot of the things that we suggested were accepted, and that's why we're anxiously looking forward to that new act whenever it comes.
Okay.
Now, to follow on from what Colin talked about in terms of enforcement and the teeth that you have as law enforcers, sometimes people I've been talking to, I get the impression that they don't feel like the changes to our traffic regulations have been done with a level of consultation to either the communities that they're going to affect, older drivers who may have received their licenses before these changes came into effect. We've recently seen a picture of someone driving up towards BET Hill now where there's no longer a provision for that, coming from the gas station at the Triangle. Again, it goes back to how you're expected to enforce laws that you may or may not, or changes that you may or may not have been consulted before they came into effect, or if you were consulted, you're not necessarily in agreement with them. Is that something that you have to deal with, that you have to grapple with as a force and find out what your position going forward is?
Yeah, well, the law places a mandate for road infrastructure and the Ministry of Transport and Works. They're the sole authority in respect of that. There have been several meetings and interaction between parties over the years, and there have been some improvement. As you said, there are times when technically a position is put forward. In terms of law enforcement or collision investigation or whatever, it may have a different view. At the end of the day, though, we recognize and we respect the fact that the Ministry of Transport and Works have that, and we try to partner wherever we can, whenever they do have good consultation with us, and putting forward our view as to how we should proceed.
But perhaps, sorry, as a follow-up to that, Cassandra, in your view or within your knowledge, are the members of the community, the wider community, the businesses in the area, are they consulted? Are there town hall meetings? Are there flyers? Are there discussions? Are there tests, prototypes done before we, for example, put up Jersey barriers or change the flow of traffic or put up a no parking sign somewhere? I'm not sure who wants to handle that.
Okay. From my experience, I mean, I cannot speak for the Ministry of Transport and Works. If they're the authority making the changes, they're the ones who dictate when and what meetings and what consultation they will have. Okay. But from my experience, I've known many members of the community to be involved in that.
Okay.
Inspector Watts, did you want to add something?
I was just saying, if I was going to say this, exactly the same thing. Whenever we, being the force, would be in a position to deal with certain matters, we try in our best to consult the community and to involve the community on the different efforts that we would intend to provide and different mandates that we want to enable. So.
All right. We have Richard on the phones. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Richard.
Because some of those policemen, I think they'll need to lead by example, because sometimes you find some of those quote-unquote unmarked vehicles that the police own. You find them parked in some areas so that, you know, they shouldn't be parking, and they're just out, go and do what they have to do, come back in, and most of the time it's not police business. What do you think about that, officer?
Well, I don't know if you know what police business is, but really and truly, sometimes the response to some emergency or matter may cause a police vehicle to be parking in an area not really prescribed for parking. But being the issue, really and truly we and ourselves do try our best to live up to what is required by law.
Okay. I hope that helps to answer your question. I think we have David on the phone line. Good morning, David. You're our final caller.
Hey, two things. We have gone ahead and implemented, we've had what we call a highway, which I don't think is quite a highway. But we've got an upper speed, no lower speed limit. So people come on the highway and they do 5 and they're within the law and they're causing congestion. Shouldn't there be a minimum speed limit on the highway as well?
I agree with you, David. Officers?
Yes, for those of us trained in traffic management and from our experiences, yes, that would help.
Is that in the legislation?
It's not in the current one, but that is one of the issues that has been addressed.
Okay, well, it's going to, very nice indeed.
We're excited about this legislation.
Yes.
we are very much so.
I know we want to get back to, parking in Bridgetown and everything, but on the weekend I saw a speed trap on the highway. I wasn't caught. I was doing the correct numbers, but it was, down in that area, the Bell area on the other side. But I would like, perhaps, to consider having one down at the Lime building. It's supposed to be 40.
Coming downhill.
You know you're going down to a section where there are going to be lane changes and everything. Why, for the life of me, would you go down there at 80? Could you all consider maybe putting a speed trap there, maybe just twice, 3 times? They would probably get the message after a while.
Well, Colin, you call them speed traps. We do speed checks. We do speed checks and law enforcement on all the roads.
My apologies.
And we operate on intelligence. We see these things too, and we try to address problems. I mean, there are problems all over the island, but we try to prioritize, and we try to put things in perspective, and we try to address them. Just like, interesting you mentioned speed. And we have a serious problem with persons exceeding the speed limit, drag racing, illegal racing. That has been there for years, and we've seen it. We've seen it all over the island, from St. Lucie to St. Philip. And we always try to put things in place to address that need. So that would just fall in line along one of those areas too that we're looking to address.
So just so I get the lingo correct, it's called a speed... What do you call? Speed check.
Check.
Speed check.
We do speed enforcement.
Speed enforcement.
I like that term. I know that we've been inviting our callers to call in, and we've taken our last call. But we have one comment from one of our very avid Facebook viewers. Good morning to Marvel Ashley Todd, who wants to know, when are you going to reintroduce Operation Road Stop? Operation Road Stop. And I think it's an addendum to a question about using the wrong lane going around the roundabout, Cassandra's pet peeve. I'm not sure if it's a traffic system or an enforcement system that predates you both, or if she has the incorrect name, but I believe it was a sort of traffic management program introduced in collaboration between the police and Ministry of Transport and Works.
Road stop. I'm not familiar with that term, but we have ongoing operations to deal with traffic quite often. We work with the Ministry of Transport and Work. We've been working with them for the last few months. You might have noticed police officers along with Ministry of Transport and Work inspectors working side by side, hand in hand, to address the problems of vehicles who don't have insurance and road taxes and whatnot.
Tullamore Rock just last week.
Right. So just so that we wrap things up a little bit, final words on parking in the city, which is becoming, like you said, a bit of an issue.
And from you as well, Inspector.
Well, parking in the city, as I said, you said becoming. It has been an issue for a lot of years. It continues to be. And as the volume of traffic grow, we know that will happen. What we want to advise drivers, when you come into town, we want you to plan your routes carefully, plan your parking carefully. Do not take the chance of parking your vehicle in an open space. The reason why it's open most likely is because in the illegal space it's no parking for various reasons.
You're not just lucky.
You're not just lucky. You're not just lucky. And as I said, the advice is, once you do what you know is required by law, you shouldn't have any problems. If you're coming to town, think about a car park area. You want to safely store your vehicle rather than leaving it on a sidewalk or a dangerous position or illegal parking area.
Anything new for crop over that we should know about?
What is happening currently, again, we are still having some challenges when it comes to theft from the person in regards to jewelry and cell phones. And we believe that these thefts are being fueled by the cash for gold. Right? You have persons, unscrupulous persons, taking and buying the gold from these persons who are perpetrating the criminal acts. Recently, an old lady, this is true, walking in a Christchurch community, going to church on Sunday, had her jewelry taken by 2 men. Wow. All right? This is something that we face daily, and I think we've reached a point where we must act on this, not only for the policing aspect of it, but all citizens. We must wake up to the fact that this is a problem and we must take hold of it.